Welcome to the Learning Adventure series. Let me introduce you to George. George was just promoted to management position for the first time in his career. And there are a few thoughts in his head. First of all, he thinks that he might not be good enough for the job. What if he fails or makes a mistake? Also, he'll be managing his previous team. Does that mean he will have to change his persona at work? He will also need to talk to a lot of people he previously didn't have to. What if he creates a bad first impression and ruins the reputation of his team? The fears were growing strong and almost took over him when his manager Laura came to talk to him. Laura had gone through a similar thought process many years ago when she was first appointed as a manager. Because Laura knew George well enough, she thought she would have a chat with him. So, what did they talk about? There's a lot of research into what a first-time manager should do, but some of the most important ones can be broken into 3 parts. A popular model by McLean, a leading authority on HR competencies, calls them listening, discussing, and performing. In the first stage, you try to find answers about the role, the company, the team, and any major stakeholders you need to work with. But it's also a good idea to think about your own style as a manager or a leader. Let's take a peek into George and Laura's conversation. First of all, Laura hands George his formal job description that has clearly outlined all of his responsibilities. She lets George read through it, in case he hadn't done this before, and makes sure to answer any questions he might have. She then walks George through the strategy of the company and the department. This allows him to see even more clearly the overall organizational chart and the connections within it. Laura also makes sure to mention any important projects that are in the pipeline and who is involved in each of them. Once George is clear on the role, the purpose, and the strategy of his new position, Laura sends him to talk to other people who are involved in his and his team's work. But she also mentions there is one very important thing that he needs to do: think about and talk to his team. George met with finance to understand the budgets and expenses policies. He spoke to HR to learn more about the performance management process and compensations. He went to IT to ensure he knows what capabilities are available. But one mistake he made was to forget to meet with his team. It's not that he didn't think it was important, he just forgot. What happened is something we will come back to a little later. For now, George had to focus on the second stage, discussing. Based on all the conversations he had, he formed a number of assumptions about what the expectations from his team were, what the customers wanted, what potential barriers there were, and so on. And he was ready to test them out and build a plan for tackling them. However, not talking to his team came back to bite him in the backside. His team was really looking forward to his promotion because they thought he would finally be their voice to top management. They assumed he knew their pains and what gaps they had that stood in their way to performing better. When the star performer of the team approached George about some of the issues, he brushed her off, saying he's too busy with other meetings and more important stakeholders. Completely ignoring them, George managed to turn them against him in a very short period of time. They quickly became disengaged and demotivated. Seeing this, Laura asked to speak to George about it. She didn't badger him, but simply asked him to place himself in their shoes and to see things from their perspective. That's when it dawned on George the mistake he had made. He asked for some tips on how to approach the team, and Laura advised him to ask a lot of questions. What, in their opinion, are they capable of? What skills do they have? And what are some of the areas they need to develop further? What do they think they need to do better? What are the things they should stop, start, and continue doing? Laura said that asking them wasn't enough. He needed to answer those questions himself first and then test his assumptions with the team. At first, he felt awful. How could he forget the most important thing, his team? Then he told himself that this is a lesson learned and booked a meeting with everyone. George not only had a great team meeting, but he also met with everyone individually, where he asked a question Laura hadn't thought of herself. He asked his team members what should he do or not do to help them perform their jobs more effectively? He soon discovered some inefficiencies and gaps that he could address straight away. George quickly realized that without his team, nothing can be accomplished. So he made it a top priority to regularly check in with them, both as a team and individually. This allowed him to enter the third stage of becoming a successful first-time manager, and that is performing. Because he already knew a lot about the role, the team, the projects, and the company, he could create some very easy quick wins. George eliminated an old process that was hindering his team, and this helped deliver 20% faster within his second month as a manager. Quick wins not only helped him feel more at home, but reassured his team that they have a good, loyal, and trusted leader. At the end of the first 3 months, Laura was very impressed with George's progress, and even learned a thing or two from him. She saw how consistent he was in his approach with his team and other stakeholders, and that he stopped worrying about making mistakes. After all, each mistake is just a lesson learned. Of course, George could not have done it without Laura. For him, she was a great role model. She had been in the business a long time, and she had all the qualities and behaviors of a true leader that he admired. Without him even realizing, he soon started to emulate her in some aspects. Instead of giving straight-ready solutions, he would ask his team members questions and help them reach their own conclusions. This way, supporting them to think for themselves. He also started supporting his team members in their personal and professional development, just like Laura did for him. Inadvertently, George became a role model for his own team members. This story doesn't have a happy end, simply because this is not the end. It is rather a great beginning of how your own story as a new manager can start. Do you agree with Laura and George's approach? Is there anything else you would recommend a new manager has to do? Let us know in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to learn more helpful tips and tricks, like and subscribe to our channel. See you next time in the Learning Adventure series.